Dr. Lyra's son pressed her palm against the humming stone and felt the vibration travel through her bones like a quiet plea. She had come to Cavtrix for one purpose only: to preserve the dying languages of a world that had almost forgotten how to speak. Every breath she took inside the Resonant Temple reminded her of Earth's own lost voices, the cultures swallowed by conflict or indifference. Her goal remained painfully simple: stop memory from fading. Yet the stone beneath her hand trembled with a disturbance that had nothing to do with age or sorrow. Something outside was approaching, and its presence turned the temple's gentle hum into a warning pulse. Valen entered with brisk steps that cracked the silence. His crystalline eyes glinted sharply as he scanned the corridor. "The perimeter nodes just collapsed," he said. "The raiders have crossed into the outer sanctum." Lyra forced her pulse to steady as she withdrew her hand from the stone. She had expected the wrath maul eventually, but not today, not when she finally felt she was close to unlocking the mural lexicon's deeper structures. Her research mattered. The temple's memories mattered. Yet the raiders treated everything as feedstock for their brood clusters. They consumed significance as if it were nutrient paste. Lyra adjusted the translation bands, circling her wrists, and studied Valen's tense posture. He was younger than most archivists, earnest enough to mask his fear with sharp movements. She respected him for it. "How long until they reach us?" she asked. "Minutes," he replied. "They're using pulse miners. The temple's mind wall won't hold." Lyra felt the first tremor through the floor, small yet forceful enough to scatter dust from the carved archways. She inhaled slowly. The temple did not respond to panic. It responded to intention, and she needed it open, cooperative, focused. "We're not abandoning the lexicon," she said. "If it falls into their hands, everything ends here." Valen's jaw tightened. "Then we need a strategy. Their resonance attacks disrupt memory pathways. They'll fracture your mind before they reach your body." Lyra moved toward the chamber housing the lexicon, allowing her voice to steady with purpose. "Human memory isn't linear," she said. "That gives me an advantage they won't anticipate." Valen stared at her as another tremor rattled the walls. "Your species is unpredictable, yes, but unpredictability won't stop a raider spear." Lyra managed a faint smile. "Maybe not, but silence might." She didn't explain. There was no time, and he needed to believe she carried more than desperation. The mural lexicon awaited them, suspended in a cradle of living basalt that shaped itself around its shifting patterns. Its surface shimmered like liquid glass illuminated by thousands of unseen voices. When Lyra stepped closer, the membrane brightened, responding to her emotional cadence. She whispered a soft fragment of an earth lullaby. The lexicon pulsed in recognition. It had no understanding of the words, but it understood longing. It always reacted to longing. Another explosion shook the corridor. Dust rained from the ceiling in thin trails. Valen stepped between Lyra and the entrance. "They're inside," he said. "We can hold them for seconds, maybe." Lyra shook her head. "We don't fight. We shape the field." She placed both hands on a lexicon and released a controlled wave of silence, an internal stillness crafted from a lifetime of unresolved grief. The temple reacted instantly. Basalt corridors bent inward, shifting into a labyrinth that slowed movement through their halls. Valen watched with stunned disbelief. "You move the architecture with emotion," he said. "Humans navigate contradiction differently," she replied. "The temple understands resonance, not logic." A sharp metallic clatter echoed from the corridor as the first raider entered view. Its fractal shell refracted light into spiraling shards, its steps slicing across stone like serrated knives. The creature halted when Lyra turned toward it. Her stillness confused it. She kept her shoulders loose, her breathing even, her eyes unwavering. The raider's mandibles clicked in agitation. It was built to consume sense, not absence. Its confusion bought them precious seconds. A deeper rumble followed, heralding the arrival of a much larger figure. The Scion Keeper emerged, towering and jagged, its sensory fronds twitching violently. We smell unharvested memory, it rasped. You will yield. Lyra held its gaze without blinking. You misunderstand who stands before you. Her voice remained soft, yet the words struck with deliberate force. The Scion Keeper recoiled, trying to categorize the emotional density behind her calm tone. Another tremor split the floor. The raiders advanced despite their hesitation. Lyra positioned herself directly in front of the lexicon. Her silence thickened, no longer peaceful but intentional. Refusal shaped into presence. Valen stepped to her side, breath sharp with fear, yet unwilling to abandon her. The Scion Keeper hissed, unable to decipher the void she projected. Your silence disturbs the brood, it said. Then listen closely, Lyra replied. Her next breath deepened the temple's hum. The lexicon brightened behind her like a memory ready to awaken. The raiders faltered, but momentum still pushed them forward. Lyra lowered her voice to a whisper that felt like a boundary drawn in air. I will not let this world fade. For one suspended second, everything stilled. The raiders, the trembling air, the temple itself. But the moment shattered as more raiders poured into the hall. Valen grabbed her sleeve. We can't hold them like this. Lyra exhaled. We don't need to hold them. We need to make them hesitate. She stepped forward, letting the silence around her thicken into a shield the raiders couldn't parse. The Scion Keeper's mandibles clicked in frustration as the temple dimmed to a pulsing twilight. The raiders advanced. Lyra did not retreat. The temple's hum deepened, gathering around her like an inhale waiting for release. And for the first time, the raiders sensed something unfamiliar. Human silence poised on the edge of transformation, ready to alter everything they believed predictable about prey. The corridor darkened as they closed in, and Lyra prepared to confront them fully. The temple held its breath with her. The moment of collision approached. The promise of resistance sharpened, and nothing about her silence suggested surrender. The storm had weakened by dawn, but its memory clung to the air like a warning. Lyra rose from the rough cot, her muscles stiff and her thoughts heavier than the dew that slicked the camp stones. She had slept little, kept awake by the echo of Kale's defiant promise and the growing suspicion that their fragile alliance would fracture before they even reached the valley. When she stepped outside, she found Kale already awake, sharpening his blade with quiet, steady strokes. His focus was rigid, almost punishing, as if he were grinding away more than steel. You didn't sleep, she observed, her voice low but not unkind. I didn't plan to, he replied without lifting his eyes. Not with what waits for us. She studied his expression, noting the tension crowding his jaw. He carried fear the way others carried armor, tight, unyielding, and impossible to ignore. But beneath it lay something else, something more volatile. A determination shaped by regret, maybe even guilt. Though he had not spoken of his past in detail, she sensed shards of it cutting through his thoughts, influencing his every decision. It isn't only what waits for us, she said gently. It's what chases you. That made him pause. The stone in his hand stilled, and a single breath escaped him, too measured to be natural. He finally looked at her, and though fatigue clouded his eyes, they still burned with a restrained fire. Then it chases us both now, he said. There was no accusation in his tone, only acceptance. Lyra stepped closer, drawn by the rare moment of openness. She wanted to ask what he truly feared, what memory tied his voice into knots, what loss carved that ever-present shadow beneath his calm exterior. But before she could speak, a tremor shook the early light. Soft at first, then persistent. The ground quivered as if something enormous moved beneath the distant ridge. Kale stood immediately, blade half-drawn. They're early. Are you sure? Lyra asked, though she already knew the answer. The sound carried a rhythm too deliberate to be natural, marching or tracking, but unmistakably organized. They found our trail, he said. I thought we had another day. The tremors grew steadier. Lyra scanned the horizon, her senses sharpening as every instinct urged her to move. We can't outrun them on open ground. We'll need cover. Kale nodded, sheathing his blade. The ravine. It's narrow enough to slow them, and the stone walls will hide our movements. And trap us, she reminded him. Only if we choose to stay trapped. There was no time to argue. They broke camp swiftly, each movement precise and silent. Lyra extinguished the last ember of the fire with her boot, erasing the final evidence of their presence. Together they hurried toward the ravine, keeping low among the tall, wind-shivering grass. The tremors grew louder, closer, carrying a metallic resonance that prickled the hairs on Lyra's arms. When they reached the ravine edge, Kale motioned for silence. They crouched behind a cluster of boulders, concealed by shadows and the bend of the terrain. A moment later, a dark line of figures emerged on the ridge above. A patrol of towering armored sentinels, their movements precise and almost fluid, each step vibrating through the earth. Lyra's breath tightened. She had seen these machines once before, long ago, on the night her life had splintered into before and after. Their presence stirred a memory she had spent years burying, yet its edges surfaced now, sharp enough to sting. Kale watched her, noting the subtle tremor in her hand. You faced them. She did not look away from the ridge. I survived them. That's different. His expression shifted, acknowledging her truth without pity. Then we use what you know. She almost smiled. I know they don't stop. That's enough to start. The sentinels paused at the top of the ridge. Their heads turned as one, scanning the valley with crimson sensors that pulsed like beating hearts. Lyra pressed herself deeper into the hollow between stones, feeling the chill of earth against her back. Kale leaned closer, his whisper barely a breath. When they move, we slip deeper into the ravine. There's a passage hidden near the southern bend. It's tight, but we can reach the river path if we're careful. And if they follow, then we make them regret it. Despite the danger, a fierce spark ignited in Lyra's chest. His confidence wasn't reckless. It was anchored in something she had begun to trust more than she expected, his unyielding belief that retreat was not their purpose. They weren't running from the conflict anymore. They were moving toward the heart of it. The sentinels resumed their march. Kale met her eyes. Ready. Lyra drew a steady breath, feeling her fear settle into focus. This time, she said firmly, we finish what they started. Side by side, they slipped into the ravine as the shadows lengthened behind them, unaware that something even more dangerous waited deeper ahead. The ravine narrowed further as they pressed deeper, its walls rising like ancient jaws poised to swallow anyone foolish enough to enter. Lyra kept close to the uneven stone, listening to each distant tremor that echoed above them. The sentinels' march became softer, muted by distance, but never fully gone. Their threat lingered like a stain on the air. Kale moved ahead, scanning the fissures that split the ravine floor, his steps precise, his senses sharp. Though he walked with confidence, tension gripped his shoulders, hinting that he anticipated danger long before it revealed itself. Is the passage close? Lyra asked, keeping her voice low. Kale nodded. Beyond that turn. Stay alert. The walls distort sound here. She could already hear the distortion, a faint hum threading through the windless gorge, growing louder as they moved deeper. It didn't belong to the sentinels. This was subtler, almost organic, as if the earth itself whispered warnings. Lyra touched the dagger strapped to her thigh, grounding herself with its familiar weight. Her memories tugged at her sharply. She had fled enough times in her life. She would not flee forever. Kale stopped suddenly, hand raised. Hear that? She tilted her head. The hum thickened, gaining a pulse. Not mechanical, not natural, something between. It's close, she whispered. Before Kale could respond, the ground trembled beneath them, not from footsteps above, but from something moving within the ravine itself. A cascade of pebbles rattled down the walls. Kale pulled Lyra behind a jutting slab of rock, just as a fissure split open across the ravine floor. Light seeped from the crack, soft, pale, and shifting. Lyra's breath caught. What is that? Kale's jaw tightened. A breach. It shouldn't be here. The fissure widened with a low groan, and from within its illuminated depths emerged a figure draped in fractured shadows. The form was humanoid, but not entirely solid, as though it flickered between presence and absence. Its movements were fluid, and the light within it pulsed like a trapped star fighting confinement. Lyra instinctively stepped back. "Kale, that's not a sentinel." "No," he said grimly, gripping his blade. "It's worse." The creature lifted its head, revealing a face carved from shifting light and glass-like fragments. It regarded them with unsettling curiosity, its expression unreadable. When it spoke, its voice rippled through the air like overlapping echoes. "You stray far from your path, Kale." At the sound of his name, Lyra stiffened. Kale didn't flinch, but his grip faltered for the smallest moment, enough for her to notice. "You know it," she whispered, accusation threading her tone before she could stop it. Kale kept his eyes on the entity. "We don't have time for this." The creature drifted closer, its feet never touching the ground. "You carry the remnants of a promise you failed," it said, "and she carries the weight of a truth she refuses to face. Together, you create imbalance." Lyra bristled, anger rising to meet her fear. "State your purpose or disappear back into whatever crack you crawled out of." The being's head tilted, its glass-like face splitting into a faint, eerie approximation of a smile. "Bold, but your courage will crumble soon enough. The ones above are not your greatest threat." It raised a luminous hand, pointing deeper into the ravine. "What waits ahead will mirror what you hide." Kale stepped between Lyra and the entity, blade poised. "We're not here for riddles." "Then you'll be consumed by them," the creature replied, "as you always have been." Before Kale could strike, the fissure snapped shut in a burst of light. The entity vanished, leaving only the scorched scent of distorted air. Silence reclaimed the ravine, heavy and charged. Lyra exhaled shakily, her pulse racing. "You know what that was?" Kale sheathed his blade, avoiding her gaze. "It doesn't matter. It's gone. For now," she said sharply. "But it spoke to you like it knew every regret you've buried. If we're walking into danger connected to your past, I need to know what we're facing." Kale finally met her eyes, and for a moment she saw the truth he kept buried, the fear that if he revealed too much, she would turn away. But she didn't move. She waited. He drew a steady breath. "That thing, it's a remnant, a manifestation tied to the breaches. They appear where the barrier between worlds is weakest." "And why does it know your name?" His silence cut more sharply than any explanation. Lyra stepped closer. "Whatever history you're hiding, it's affecting us both now. If you want me to trust you in what lies ahead, I need more than half answers." Kale's expression wavered in conflict, but before he could speak, another tremor rolled through the ravine, far stronger than the last. Dust rained from the cliff walls. The ground buckled slightly beneath their feet. "They're forcing the breach open," Kale said, urgency overtaking hesitation. "If they widen it, everything changes." Lyra tightened her grip on her dagger. "Then we stop them." He nodded, resolve hardening. "But from here on, no more secrets. Not from either of us." It wasn't the full truth, but it was a beginning. And as the ravine darkened ahead, Lyra realized beginnings mattered more than promises. Together, they ran toward the source of the tremors, unaware that what awaited them would test not just their strength, but the fragile trust forming between them.